Thank you so very much for the support from the Patreon sponsors today, MCID and OG Anku. Hey guys, it's Andrew, AJT, and today we're going to go over some of the earliest memories I have for RuneScape back probably around 2004, 2005, maybe a little bit of 2006 and 2007. Now, I've talked about this era of the game a lot in the past year. I made the whole 2006 pictures series, but that really wasn't my story. I mean, I of course put a lot of personal anecdotes in there, but today I just want to talk about my earliest memories just for me. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of this. I only started recording and taking pictures around late 2007. I really hate that because I wish I could just go back in time and like teach myself to do print screen and Microsoft Paint and everything, because I'm sure I would have had a lot of pictures. But what I'm going to do instead is actually go through and go to these areas in the game as they are today, so I can kind of share what happened and what I remember. And I actually remember a surprising amount, and I almost just want to make this video just so these memories are on video, so maybe if another 16 years goes by, I can always look back and actually remember these things. But I think you guys will find them interesting as well. So my first memory of RuneScape is actually literally the first time I ever logged into the game, which I'm shocked I can actually remember this, and I remember it because there was a huge problem. I had such a hard time logging into the game because, remember, this was a web browser game originally, and anytime you wanted to log in, I would get a little message that said, do you want to allow Java to run? And I just thought it was a pop-up, so usually I would just exit out, and you actually needed to allow that to play. And remember, pop-ups, were very common back in the day on the internet. You could just be browsing around, you would get these pop-ups. People would talk about, oh, make sure you have a pop-up blocker. Nobody really talks about pop-ups anymore, but they were a big problem back in the day. So I remember finally figuring out that you have to click run there. And when I got on, the first problem that I was trying to figure out was how to find my friend. And I didn't understand that every single world is actually the same thing. Like, I thought, okay, I might be in Lumbridge here, but on another world, there might be totally different towns and monsters and NPCs. I thought the game was like that big. And by the way, this is where I remember this happening. I don't know if there's such a thing as a photographic memory, but I definitely have a clear picture in my head of me standing about right here. Like, I wish I could almost like copy and paste it from my head to show you guys, but I'm basically standing right here. There's no tutors here at the time. Although I do remember talking to G and him saying that this is like a fake staff that he's wearing. Does he still say that? I literally haven't talked to this guy in like forever. Yeah, he says like it's a powerful staff, and then he's like, oh, it's fake. Yeah, so the dialogue hasn't changed. So when I was very new to playing, I actually had my friend over a lot, and we would try to figure things out in the game, and he knew way more about it than I did. And one of the first things he was showing me was how to train your skills and all that. And I actually remember him saying, like, a cow is a pretty tough enemy, but maybe you can train on it. And this is where I did a lot of my early training. Of course, we know today that cows are one of the weakest enemies in the game, but no one really understood stats and all that, especially with NPCs right in the beginning. You just look at a cow and think that's a big enemy, and it could be challenging to train on. And I know the idea of having someone over to play RuneScape might sound odd now because we have Discord and Skype and all that, but of course there wasn't Discord, and Skype was very new in 2004. And also, even talking on the phone was difficult because you couldn't actually use the phone and internet at the same time, depending on what type of internet you had, which sounds really silly now, but that was actually very common. So back in the day when everyone was extremely newbie, people would actually play RuneScape together in real life. It sounds so bizarre to think about now. And remember that a lot of people were free to play at the time. I was free to play for the first couple years, I think. It was not as common as it is today to have membership. And we didn't really know how big the game was, so a lot of time was just spent walking around because you didn't have agility or energy potions in free to play or anything like that, and just exploring. And I didn't have Prince Ali Rescue done, so I remember having to make this walk to Alcarid so many times. One very early memory was I remember my friend managed to somehow acquire a rune axe which rune items when you first started playing at the time were like considered god items. Like a rune axe was probably like a twisted bow today or something, because rune items were just so coveted. So I remember just talking with them saying, should you sell it to a shop, or should you try to sell it to another player, or maybe you should try to get 40 attack and that'll actually be your primary weapon, because we just figured if it's a rune item, it's probably an insanely good weapon for the game. Now, I do have a memory to share in Alcarid, but one thing before that that's pretty relevant is because I would die so often just to like NPCs, I actually remember, I'm pretty sure you can go up here, yep, it's still here, and take this bronze dagger, and this was my weapon of choice for like the first year of playing, because I knew that if I ever died, you could come here and get the bronze dagger back. So not exactly the most powerful weapon, but it's free and easy to use. Also, I definitely relied on this wooden shield spawn once someone told me about it. So I was so newbie in the first few weeks of playing that I couldn't even tell who was a player and who was an NPC. So when my friend, again in real life, actually fought and defeated one of these level 2 men, I was like, oh my god, is that another player? Did you just PK someone? Holy crap. And he's like, no, that's just an NPC, it's computer controlled, it's not really another person playing as that level 2 man. And in fact, it will actually respawn fairly quickly. So another thing that was of great discussion between me and my friends was the basement of the Varrock West Bank here, and my friend was actually convinced that if he could get Telegrab, he would basically have infinite money in RuneScape, because all he would have to do is just Telegrab this stuff and he would get literally infinite money. Now, of course, everyone knows today there's no cheats or anything in RuneScape, but we didn't know that at the time. Lots of games had cheats, infinite live codes, or infinite money, or different things like that. And who was to say that RuneScape wouldn't have the same thing? We didn't know. And we actually thought that if one of us could get the magic level for Telegrab, which is not even that high, 33, we could have infinite GP. And of course, this did not work out. I think you actually lose money by telegrabbing most of the stuff, and if I remember correctly, you can't actually get everything. Like this ruby ring is at a too difficult of an angle to get. Can you get the gold ore though? I'm not even sure you can get that. Oh, it looks like you can, but what is it actually worth? Probably not much more than the cost of a law rune. In fact, it's actually 4 GP more, and you need air runes as well, so you basically break even. And by the way, I thought gold farming just meant that you would find a coin pile and just literally stand here, pick it up, and then wait for it to respawn again. And that was what gold farming was. And when people complained about gold farmers, that's what I thought they were talking about. And coming here and getting this 3 GP was actually one of my first money makers in the game. So I actually found my way to Varrock for the first time with a newcomer map, which you can buy in Lumbridge, and people would actually just hang out here pretty much all the time, and Varrock looked way different. There wasn't this walkway over the fountain, and when they did eventually update Varrock in 2007, they added this NPC who sells you the Varrock Herald, and even today in Old School, this talks about the Varrock makeover, which happened 13 years ago, so it's kind of funny that you can still buy an item today in-game that talks about an update that happened 13 years ago. It also mentions the Varrock Museum update at the bottom, and it looks like just recently they added on the top right a link to the new type of news post that Jagex does. Also in Varrock was one of the more popular hangout spots, which is this bar here, which is pretty much dead content now. I think you go here for the Family Crest quest, if I'm not mistaken, upstairs, but people used to actually hang out here, and you would get all sorts of players, skillers, PVMers, questers, which was actually a thing at the time. People would be considered a quester. Yeah, there's the NPC. But one thing I remember being told was, hey, don't go any more north than this bar on the map. This is as far north as you should ever go. And I'm like, what's the big deal? What's north of here? It doesn't look that bad. So keep in mind, there was no wilderness ditch at the time. So eventually my curiosity got the better of me, and I just started wandering north. And all you got was a little message that said, hey, this is the wilderness, players can attack you. And of course, I didn't read that. I just X'd it out, didn't know where I was, and all I started doing was just wandering north. I was just wandering north. And eventually I got to around here, and I died almost instantly from a hail of arrows from a clan, and I was scared shitless. I had no idea what the hell happened. I didn't know that I could be attacked by other players. I didn't know what a PK clan was. I just remember getting to right around here, and there were all these PKers on this little hill here. I was entangled and I died within seconds, and that was like the scariest experience I ever had in game early on, because I didn't even know that I could be attacked here, let alone by a huge clan. But I learned from it and knew that if I'm going to go back to the wilderness, it's going to be a risk. So this is going to sound pretty stupid, but I remember thinking about this when I was around level 40 combat in this bank, when this bank was actually very common for trading. So back in the day, you could actually change your public chat and all this to friends and off and all that just by left clicking, which you have to right click now obviously to change this. But somehow I had changed my public chat to friends, and for probably around a couple months I didn't know how to change it back. So I thought my account was just like permanently glitched where I couldn't talk to anyone in public chat. I knew that I could still PM people and talk to friends, but there wasn't clan chats either, so your communication would be pretty limited. I think at one point I even messaged Jagex customer support to try to get help with this, and I even considered making a new account. But eventually I figured it out, and it was such a huge relief. I have such a huge smile on my face right now because I really haven't delved into these memories for such a long time. Like, I've always had them, but now that I'm actually kind of replaying them out in my head, it's kind of just really amazing. The next one relates to the wilderness as well, which I'm going to share with you. So as scary as that wilderness death was, I actually was very curious and wanted to join a clan myself to try to PK, which is really the reason I'm still very interested in PKing today. And I actually did. I joined the Stone Warriors, and they actually had a website that only went down, I think, a couple years ago. I remember trying to go to this website a few years ago and it did work, but unfortunately it doesn't work anymore. But I did find this post on the Sal's RuneScape forum, which I'll link for you guys, that actually has some old pictures, and it mentions some people I do recognize. The leader, Ice Shielder here, I do recognize. He made the clan back into a free-to-play, player-killing clan, but wars were not on the agenda, blah blah blah. But basically this was a pretty big clan, and you would have to use like an IRC and add people in game. I do actually remember some of these names. And this was originally a free-to-play clan, so as you see here, here's some pictures. I don't think I'm in any of them, unfortunately, but this gives you an idea of what type of free-to-play PKing people would do. Just kind of wander around and search for people. There's the Varrock Museum in its old form, which was pretty neat to see. So my biggest memory from that clan was another unfortunate incident. So basically, in free-to-play, we would go in these big groups, and basically the way I'm dressed as now in game is basically what the clan leader, or at least the person leading us at the time, was dressed like. I don't think it was Ice Shielder, it might have been someone else, but basically I distinctly remember him looking like this in the random event gear, and this would have been almost considered like pretty impressive looking gear at the time, even though we know today it's useless and it's really easy to get and gives no stats. But basically he was leading us around the wilderness, and I didn't even know there were greater demons here. That was kind of a scary thing to see, that like, wow, there's these really, really high level monsters deep in the wilderness, and just kind of walking around here felt like playing a horror game like Silent Hill or something, because you're so far away from any type of normal gameplay, like normal towns and cities and all that, and you don't know what you're gonna find, and you're just wandering around. And sure enough, eventually we ran into another PK clan, and it was a massacre. I'm kind of ashamed to admit that I actually just ran right off the bat and did not really do a great job at fighting back. I think we were so outnumbered anyway that it would have been futile. So it happened right around here, and after we died, I remember the person leading us, dressed like this, PMing me, telling me, damn it, they got my frog mask, which nowadays we know that you can't PK other people's untradeable items. One of my favorite training methods was going down here to the Moss Giants. This was actually like one of the most popular free-to-play dungeons. There's actually quite a bit to do down here if you're a low-level player. And conventional logic at the time was that the more powerful a weapon is, the better it is, so no one really talked about weapon speed or anything, so a Rune 2H was considered like the best weapon. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that that was actually kind of true in RuneScape Classic, so maybe people kind of thought that way still, and it just carried over to new players as well. But I remember my friend had a Rune Longsword eventually, which was really badass, and I remember someone who I didn't know was actually down here with a Rune 2H, and he hit like a 28 or something, or a 27, and I just thought, wow, I wish I could be that guy one day. How can you hit that high in this game? That's pretty insane. Nowadays we assume that everyone's an expert, but there are actually probably some people in free-to-play that are playing the game like I played it back in the day. I mean, there's a level 34 down here just chilling, training on zombies in full steel. He's probably just having the same adventure that I had originally. So as far as other moneymakers, one very early one was this guy gives you like 30 GP if you pick bananas and put them in the crate. But once I got a little better and I was doing the clan Pking and I was dying and losing rune sets eventually, I did most of my money making here. I would fish these lobsters, and then once I have a full inventory of raw ones, I would take the boat back from here to here, and then just walk all the way to Draenor, bank the 28 lobsters, or actually 27 because you need the net, and then walk all the way back here, and then finally all the way back here and get another inventory. And I had to do that for weeks every time I lost a rune set. It sounds crazy now, but everyone was extremely newbie at the time, other than a very select group of players. So another one of my moneymakers involved mining rune essence and then actually giving it to runners, so I'll show you basically what I did. I would go here on free-to-play worlds and mine the rune essence, and at the time there was only rune essence, there wasn't pure essence, and when they actually added pure essence, it actually was quite a controversy at the time. But I would basically do this until I had, I would say, around a few hundred rune essence. So once I had that, and this was when I was probably a member for the very first time, you would take a full inventory from the Draenor Bank and walk here, and there would actually be a ton of people doing rune crafting here, and they would basically trade you 28 or so law runes for 28 rune essence, so it was basically law running. This was overall decent money, even though you're basically getting nothing from it, because I think law runes were like 1,000 each, so you could actually make decent money doing this. Now law runes aren't worth anything, and I don't think anyone does this anymore, but it was actually a cool system. So there you have it, those are my earliest memories in RuneScape. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and definitely leave a like if you did. Let me know if you want to see another one. I'm sure more memories will come back to me the more I think about this. But if you haven't seen it, I made a video series a while back on rare pictures from 2006 RuneScape, which actually also includes a couple from 2005 as well. So I definitely recommend you check that out. That'll be in the description and in the end screen, and I also made one for pre-EOC as well. This was super fun to make. I actually remember it a lot more than I thought, so it's always cool to reminisce, and let me know if you guys have any memories that you would like to share in the comments. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell icon to get notifications whenever I upload. You can join my clan chat in game, AndrewAJT62. You can join our Discord down below. You can follow me on Twitter down below at AndrewAJT, and if you want to support the channel even further, you can check out my Patreon page in the end screen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.